What's going on, everybody? It's Josh here, Old School Cards, episode 13, and we have got a great show in store for you. But first, a new intro song.
Come on, it's the old school game. Lecture hall filled with tales and fame. Josh shares his sports card plays. Episode 13 is about to amaze. Episode 13 is about to amaze. Lucky legends and stacks. Vintage flair, those cardboard jacks. Memory script in a little square. Josh brings passion everywhere. Old school cards in our hands, they shine. History's woven through each line. Trade them, flip them, cherish the gold. Every story waiting to be told. The thrill of wax, the thrill of the find. Josh takes us back to simpler times. Gretzky's ghost skating on the sheet. Frozen moments we hold complete. The legends gather, sharing the lore. Core stuffed, but they mean much more. Grand scales, battles fought and won. Old school love can't be outdone. Sleeves and boxes bind us tight. Josh and the cards glowing in light. Episode 13, echoing loud. Lecture hall and a devoted crowd.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that. And here we go with our show lineup. The first thing we're talking about is graded cards. It's a controversial subject, and some people love them and some people hate them. But I have a thought. I don't know if anybody has tried it, but we're going to talk about that. And number two, back to 600 goal scorer history. This week we're talking Steve Yzerman. We got some great stuff that we found on his legendary NHL career, and his 600 goals are part of his milestones. So Steve Yzerman will be our 600 goal scorer history subject matter for episode 13. Moving into portion 3 of the podcast, it's Blue Liner of the Week. And we got somebody making a return appearance, and we don't have the same numbers that we had the last time they were on. So that should be fun. Number 4, milestone marker. That one I'm going to leave a surprise until we get there. Somebody did reach a milestone in their career in the last week, and it was pretty cool looking into that. Then we move into our Chasing Greatness portion, where we're following Ovechkin's pursuit of Gretzky's goal-scoring record. And the numbers changed there this week, so we do have an update there. And lastly, we're going to do our personal pickups for this last week. I had a ton of stuff come in, but I'm only going to highlight the things that I think maybe were the coolest. I've done quite a bit of card buying over the last couple weeks. So we're going to talk about 5 or 6 cards that did come in. I'll show you in the podcast, in the video portion. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you're ready. So let's get to it. So the first portion of the show, graded card talk. I've heard so many people say they don't like graded cards, that it's a scam. I think the negativity around card grading is the way some people conduct their business. Most people don't conduct business the way that some of these grading companies do, like PSA. PSA is a very lucrative company. They're considered the leader in the graded card industry, and people don't like the way they take advantage of how that works. So if you've never submitted with PSA, the way it works is you submit your card for a certain price. However, PSA grades that card, and if they deem that card with that grade is above a certain price threshold, then they charge you more money to get your card back in that graded slab with that grade. So in essence, it's kind of like an underhanded business practice because they can kind of control pop counts. That is one very big drawback, I guess you could say, on the graded card side. There's theories out there that bigger cards don't get appropriate grades because PSA is trying to keep the population count of said grades at certain numbers, or the pay-to-play person who maybe grades a bunch of cards with them, that maybe they might get better grades because of the business that they give to PSA. There's a lot of non-transparent portions of the grading that go on, and I think that's why many people are not fans of PSA, especially, even though they are the graded card leader in the sports card industry. In the trading card industry, like Pokemon, stuff like that, a lot of people use CGC. It's another grading company that is a subjective company. They also do a lot of numbers. A lot of their grading comes in comic books and other things, so not really sports cards, but they're pretty much the leader in that forte of non-sports card trading cards type things. Lots of people use them for those grading services. But when we're talking sports cards, we're talking PSA, we're talking SGC, which are both owned by Collectors Universe. So one company owns both grading companies. Now they still have separate business practices. SGC, you grade your cards and you pay up front. So when you create your submission, before you even send the cards out, you pay for the grading because they do not have the upcharges that PSA has. But the drawback is SGC and CGC and even Beckett don't command the prices that PSA commands. Now, the big issue with grading is there's no real set standard. In these companies, they employ people to do their grading for them. So essentially, I could be a grader at PSA. I would go through their training. They would teach me to grade cards. They would teach me their model. But the grades that I give are subjective. And I can tell you, I've submitted quite a few cards to PSA for grading. And I always get in one batch one card that makes absolutely no sense. It'll come back a 5 or it'll come back a 6. And there's no major issues with that card. It just seems to be that for every 20 cards I send to PSA, randomly they pick one and send it back a 5 or a 6. Everything else in the order might be a 9 or a 10. You might, in a grading submission of 20 cards, if you are I don't want to say servicing your cards, but I do not send cards to PSA for grading if they're to the naked eye off center. I put the surface of the card under light. If there's a dimple, a scratch, or something like that, doesn't go to PSA. I will not send it because I don't want to get dinged for that. If the corners are bad or there's flaking around the edges because the card is foil or it's old, maybe it's a dark color, like it's got black edges, they show wear really easy. If I see any flaws, I will not put it in the not the one touch. I won't put it in the protector sleeve, which they require for submission, and submit the card. So that's what I do to my cards before I send them. I don't, if I see a fingerprint on a chromium card or something, I might take a microfiber cloth and try to wipe that fingerprint off. But other than that, really selecting cards for grading is pretty rudimentary. Put the card under some light, make sure there's no surface issues, make sure the card is centered. They sell centering tools that you can lay over the top of the card to show you if the card is centered or not, because it can be hard with some cards that don't have borders or anything like that, but you can kind of tell when you overlay the centering tool if you need it, and you can leave it in a sleeve so it doesn't do anything to the card. But really, that's the process that I use when I submit any card to PSA, unless it's a card for my personal collection that I don't care what the grade is. I just want it graded so that it's protected. Then I'll send it off, and I might expect that it be a 5 or a 6 or a 7. But for modern cards, I do not expect to get a 5 or a 6 back. So that's the in and out of, I guess, their subjective grading process. So I say all of that to go into a thought that I had. There's a new company out there, and people really like the company because it does a lot of things that PSA doesn't, and they think that those are the things that should be a part of the grading process. One of the things it does is incorporate AI technology, and there is no subjective grading by an individual. And this company is tag grading. So it's all computer generated grading. They put the parameters and everything into the computer system. Your card goes into the system. The computer checks the card, and it grades the card through the use of technology. It's not graded by an individual person. Not done the way anybody else does it. It's done computer generation, and it's all standard across the board. It doesn't matter who sends the card or who it is. The standards are the standards. The computer goes by those standards, and it grades the card according to those standards. So many people believe that this form of grading takes away the population control, takes away the subjectivity of a personal interaction, and they think that that's the way to go with grading. Now, PSA has said that they're not planning on doing anything like that. They have faith in their card graders and the way they train their employees. But PSA has a service called the crossover service. So essentially what you can do is you can take a card graded from a reputable company. You can submit it to PSA in that holder, in that company's holder, with the grade in it and everything else. And PSA will evaluate the card, and you can even set parameters on the grade of the card. So you can send a card to PSA in a tag holder that maybe the card is a tag 10, meaning no flaws. You can send it to PSA in the tag 10 holder, and then you could tell PSA, if you look at this card and it's not going to be a PSA 10, don't transfer it to your holder. But you can take a tag 10, you can say that, send it to them, and theoretically, if tag gives the card a 10, which I guess maybe this is kind of a push for tag. I've never graded with them, but theoretically, if it's using computer technology and a card grades a 10, then therefore it's getting a perfect grade from a non-subjective grader that has parameters set. So you could send that card to PSA and you could say, hey, if this is a 10 with you guys, go ahead and cross it over to PSA. Why would somebody do that? Because of the value of the card being in a PSA slab, and it would not, it should not be anything other than a 10, because this card was not subjectively graded. It was graded within the same parameters that every other card from that era or whatever was graded at. So if the computer scans the card and it says there's no surface issues, there's no corner issues, the card is centered both front and back, there's no edge problems, and it gets a 10, then you submit that card in that slab, that tag slab, to PSA, and you say, hey, I want to cross this card over to one of your guys' slabs. And it should grade a 10. So if it doesn't grade a 10, then don't cross it over. I'll keep it in my slab that I have. And theoretically, then, if you did that, then every card you submitted that was a tag 10 should come back a PSA 10. But people, I think, are afraid to do that because it makes sense, I think, with tag. In my opinion, it makes perfect sense with tag. And the reason why is because tag doesn't grade their cards with people. They grade their cards with a computer system. So whatever the grade that tag gives it, I fully believe that that's the grade that it should have. And with every tag graded card, you can get a digital report of the issues with your card. So you can scan a QR code that's on the slab, and it pulls up all the information, all the grading notes from the computer about that card and why it graded the way it did. So not only can PSA evaluate it with their subjective grading, but they can scan it and see what the tag report says about why it received the grade that it did. Therefore, that should further the case that if it's a tag 10, that PSA should give it a 10, which might double the value of the card because PSA slabs are what is valued in the sports card collector community. Now, the drawback is most people will purchase a card in a slab from another grading company, especially Beckett. People are notorious for the Beckett cards where they will order or they will find a card in a Beckett slab because the Beckett slab has subgrades on the card, and if it meets certain criteria that they set, they can then crack it out of the slab, submit it to PSA in hopes that it will get the grade bump that they're looking for. So if you get a BGS 9.5 and all the subgrades are 9.5 on a card, theoretically PSA does not have a 9.5, so you're probably a little better than 70%, 75% maybe, that you're going to get a grade of a 10 on your PSA slab. But people, I think, are scared to do it where they submit the actual slab. Most people do not submit a BGS slab with the card they want in PSA to come back. They crack the BGS slab, take the card out, and then submit it like it's a brand new card to PSA because they're afraid that if you submit it in the slab to PSA, that PSA is going to say, well, if our cards are more valuable than Beckett, so a Beckett 9 is a PSA 7, and therefore your card will never meet their standards, so to speak. Whereas the problem with that is you submit it for a crossover. If you decide, if you don't cross the card over, you still have to pay the submission fee. So my thinking is it might be worth it to submit a tag 10 for a crossover to see what PSA does, or build a sample size of cards. Like, hey, I sent in 10 tag 10s and PSA crossed them all over to 10s. And then you're starting to maybe get somewhere with that. But I don't know if anybody is willing to actually do that. The other drawback to that is the people who grade with tag usually know that their card values are not going to be high on the resale end. So the reason why they grade with tag is because they like the slab and what the company has to offer. So the cards they grade with tag are their own personal cards that they're not looking to move or get rid of, so they don't really care about if it's going to be in a PSA slab, because in their mind, or they've already made up their mind, they're not going to submit that, they're not going to sell that card. So just my thoughts on graded cards. Let me know what you guys think. My email is right down below, oldschoolcards24@gmail. Give me your thoughts on that. Have you submitted your cards for crossover to PSA in a tag slab? And what did PSA give your card? I think you can make a stronger argument if you're using a standard that is not subjective, that if tag graded your card a 10, then why would PSA not give it a 10? Because tag is using precise computer technology, as opposed to PSA, who's using a human subjectively grading. If you've done it, I want to know. Let me know what the results are. I've never done it. I don't own a tag slab, but I've thought about it. I've thought about picking up tag slabs if I could and submitting them for crossover, just to see, to test the knowledge or to test my theory on that. So let me know your thoughts on that. Email me. Tell me. I want to know what you guys think about that. I also think that it could solve a lot of people's issues when it comes to graded cards, because at the end of the day, I don't think people have an issue with their card being graded or in a graded slab. It adds an extra layer of protection to the card. I mean, you could drop it and you might break the slab, but you're most likely not going to damage the card, which is the ultimate goal. You don't want to add damage to your cards or to your collection, because even if you plan on not selling your cards, you're not going to live forever, and those cards have to go somewhere. And if nobody in your family wants them, or you don't plan on leaving them for that, maybe you plan on leaving them as a financial nest egg, you want to have value in your cards, and you don't want people to take advantage of the people that you love when it comes to that. So I don't think the issue is that people don't like graded cards. I think the issue is that they don't like the company's business practices and the way they go about grading the cards. That's why tag is getting a reputation, because it's a good reputation, but tag is getting this reputation because they use computers. They don't use people to grade the cards. So people are more apt to go with that because they know it is what it is, and you can see they offer full transparency, so you can see why it got what it got, why it is what it is. Sometimes people just want to know the truth. It may not be what they want to hear, but they will respect you if you tell them the truth, and they will not respect you if you keep stuff hidden behind a curtain. And they definitely don't respect people if they feel like they're being taken advantage of. So you submit a card under a certain thing, and who decides what the value of said card is? So PSA can upcharge you and tell you, well, this is $1,000 card, so we're charging you more money. But where do they get the $1,000 card from? Is there one sale for $1,000, and is it a confirmed sale while all the other sales are for $250? But they're going to go with the highest sold value and value the card at that? Or are they going over the average sale price? It's really hard to determine whether or not a card's value is what it is. Not to mention, the other argument on that is, I'm paying you for a service. You're providing the same service whether the card is worth $1,000 or whether the card is worth $5. You're doing the same thing. You're grading the card, you're encasing it with a label saying that the card is authentic and this is the grade. So what does it matter if it's $1,000 card or a $5 card, especially if I'm not going to sell cards? Why should I have to pay more money when I'm not going to resell the card? So you're giving my card a grade. Hey, that's great, thanks. But that card is going into my personal collection and I'm never going to sell it. So why should I have to pay you more money because you're expecting that I'm going to sell that card and you think you should get a bigger piece of the pie? And most people don't think that that's an ethical business practice, but they've been doing it that way for as long as I've been back dealing with cards since 2018. I can't, I don't know anything prior to that, but it's been that way since I've been grading cards with PSA. And at a point, I had committed to not send cards to PSA. However, I find value in tracking my collection or even checking the prices of cards. Most of these card apps will recognize a PSA slab because PSAs have barcodes and everything else, whereas I can take another slab, SGC, Beckett, something like that, and I can't just look up a price real quick by scanning the card because the computer algorithm is not made for other style slabs. It's made for PSA. So the ease of use or the ease of accessibility to find prices and stuff when you're at card shows is catered towards PSA as well. So I find myself collecting PSA cards because it's easier to look them up. It's easier to keep track of them. There's no set registry for SGC or, as far as I know, Beckett. But Beckett's going under. We might as well not even talk about what they're going to be doing because they're not going to be doing anything. They have a whole plethora of issues over there at Beckett. So that really doesn't leave many options. I like PSA because of the ease of use, and there are certain things I like about SGC, but I also like the idea of the computer grading because I don't feel like if my card gets a certain grade that anybody manipulated that. Because if they're going to say, hey, this is a 6, then there's going to be a whole bunch of information as to why it's a 6. And you're going to be able to see it on the card and in the information. So I just keep rambling on about this topic, but I'm really interested to know because I do like graded cards. I really like the idea that I can preserve a piece of cardboard that is going to be fragile. It's susceptible to sunlight, all these different things for some other collector or two collectors down the road. What if I hold this card till I die, then my family sells it to somebody who holds that card till they die? You're talking that card could make it 200 years or 300 years because it's encased and protected, which to me is something kind of cool to think about. And if there was a way to track who owned it or keep track of like, hey, it was in this guy's collection, then it was over in this person's collection, I really think that something like that would be really cool because you can look in the future. It won't affect us, kind of a little bit, but in the future you can look back and go, man, this guy owned this card in 2025 and here we are in 2250 and it's still around. That is something that I think would be really cool, and I don't think we can get there not preserving them or trying to protect them by encasing them. So I love graded cards. I wish all of my cards could be graded. I could not afford that, but I love graded cards. And it doesn't make sense to grade everything. A $2 card does not need to be graded. That's not what the whole purpose of grading. But the higher value cards, yeah. But if you want to have all your cards graded, you should be able to get them all graded at a reasonable price with the same standard. So that's all I'm going to say about the first portion of this podcast because I probably spent way too much time talking about it, but I want to know what you guys think too. So email me, let me know if you've done that, let me know your thoughts on it. Do you have any ideas? Maybe you have an idea that I don't know about that you can share, and maybe we can talk about it on the podcast. Because I'm fully committed to circling back to some of these topics in future episodes. So that's portion number 1, and we will move in right now to portion number 2. Okay, guys, here we are. Portion number 2 of episode 13. It's the 600 goal scorer history. And today we're talking about Stevie Y. I decided to stick with Steve Yzerman because I already have his rookie card, similar to what I did last week. And I want to share some history about Steve Yzerman, 600 goal scoring history, and just things about him from his career which make him special. So Steve Yzerman scored his 600th goal on November 26, 1999 in a 4-2 win against the Edmonton Oilers at one of the most famous arenas in hockey, Joe Louis Arena. It's where the Red Wings played their home games for a long period of time. It's no longer there. Well, it may still be there. I've never been there, but they play in a new arena now, and it's called Little Caesars Arena, but they didn't revamp the arena they were playing in. They built a brand new arena, and that's where the Red Wings play now. So goal 600, 4-2 win over the Edmonton Oilers in 1999 at the Joe. Some interesting facts about Steve Yzerman. He is the longest serving team captain in NHL history. He captained the Red Wings for 19 seasons from 1986 to 2006, and he became the Red Wings captain at the age of 21. Stevie Y was a member of 3 Stanley Cup winning teams, all Detroit Red Wings, 1997, 1998, and 2002. At the time of November 1999, when Steve Yzerman scored his 600th goal, he was the 11th player in NHL history to reach the 600-goal milestone. So when he did it, there was only 10 other people, and he became number 11. Today, we have 21, Sidney Crosby being the most recent member added onto that list. Another interesting fact, I've got all my notes here, guys, so I'm looking down, looking up, looking down, looking up. On November 26, 1999 was the day that he scored his 600th goal. How is this for NHL history linking up? November 26, 1917 was the date that the National Hockey League was formed with 5 charter members. The Montreal Canadiens, the Montreal Maroons, the Toronto Arenas, the Ottawa Senators, and the Quebec Bulldogs. When the NHL was formed, guess who was elected president of the league? Mr. Frank Calder, where they named the Calder Memorial Trophy after. And the Calder Trophy is the trophy that goes to the rookie, the best rookie in the NHL. Something else cool about his 600th goal, the week before he scored his 600th goal, he passed the 900 assist mark, and then he got his 600th goal. So when he scored his 600th goal, it put him at 1,503 points in his career. So he's over 1,500 points when he scores his 600th goal. So not only was he a big goal scorer, but he also contributed with a large amount of assists in his career. So his point total is high. The only other 600 goal scorer to score all 600, or to score all of not just his 600 goals, but all goals in his career with one team was Mario Lemieux. So he shares something special with Mario Lemieux, but in my opinion, I think Steve Yzerman's record is even more of a big deal than what Mario Lemieux did, just because of the simple fact that he played longer than Lemieux, which means that the Red Wings had to keep him around longer. So even though he shares all points scored with the same team with Lemieux, it is kind of cool at how long he did it and how long he did it for one team. From 1987 to 1983, Steve Yzerman scored over 100 points every single year. He scored 50 goals 5 times from 1988 to 1989. He scored over 50 goals 5 times. 1988, 1989, he set a Red Wings record with 65 goals and 90 assists for 155 points. And he finished third for the Hart Trophy, which is the MVP trophy in the NHL. So he scores 65 goals, has 90 assists, and scores 155 points. Yeah, bud, you finished third. You know why? Because there's a guy named Wayne Gretzky in this league and also another guy named Mario Lemieux. And those were the two guys who finished ahead of him. So he has a 155-point year, and he finished third in the MVP voting. So Steve Yzerman's career spanned 1,514 games. During that time, he scored 692 goals and had 1,063 assists, which put him at 1,755 points in his career. When we take it all the way back to the beginning, he was drafted in 1983. He was the 4th overall pick in the first round by the Detroit Red Wings. Fourth overall pick by the Detroit Red Wings in the first round. Some of the awards that he won in his career was the Bill Masterton Memorial Trophy, and that's the NHL's trophy for perseverance, sportsmanship, and dedication. He won that in the 2002-2003 season. He won the Conn Smythe, which is the MVP for the Stanley Cup playoffs in 97-98. He won the Selke Trophy, which is the best defensive forward in the NHL from 1999 to the 2000 season. He won the Lester Patrick Trophy, which is the contribution to hockey in the United States, which is kind of an interesting award because Steve Yzerman is Canadian. So he won a trophy for his contribution to United States hockey as a Canadian in the NHL. I guess I could see it because he's in Detroit, but I thought that was kind of funny. He won that award in 05-06, and he also won the Ted Lindsay Award, which is it kind of is like the Hart Trophy. It's the NHL's most outstanding player in the regular season, but the Hart Trophy is voted on by people outside of the NHL, sports writers, stuff like that. The Ted Lindsay Trophy is given to the player who all the other players say, hey, that guy was the best player in the league this year. So it's actually the MVP trophy voted on by the NHLPA, the Players Association. And he won that award in 88 and 89, which is the year that he scored 155 points, but finished third in the Hart Trophy. So he didn't win the Hart Trophy, but he did win the Ted Lindsay Award. Some hobby talk about Mr. Yzerman. His rookie card is 1984 Topps, card number 49. That's the card that I own. PSA 10 average sale is $1,981, and there have been 3 sales of that card in the last 90 days. The last sale of Steve Yzerman's PSA 10 Topps rookie card was November 19th, 2024 for $2,550. He has 7,338 Topps cards graded with PSA. 81 of those cards are PSA 10s. 1,585 of those cards are PSA 9s. So he has an abysmal gem rate of 1.1%. That's why his PSA 10 is worth so much money, because he has a 1.1% gem rate. 1.1% is probably the lowest I've seen of the players I looked up. That's crazy. He has 81 PSA 10s out of 7,338 cards graded with PSA. 1.1%. That's insane. But it does make sense. PSA did not come around until the 1990s. So 10 years, 11 years after his rookie card even came out. So people didn't really even, I mean, people cared about preserving cards, but not the way they do now. So I could see how it would have a lower gem rate because people had to take care of that card and then submit it after PSA even became a company. So the reality is they probably didn't even grade a whole bunch of those cards early on. Most of those cards were probably graded later in his career, like when he was wrapping up. So the card had to survive outside of protection for a longer period of time, which kind of makes more sense as to why now grading cards is important, because it just goes to show that the longer a card goes without having some kind of protection on it, the less the card condition is going to deteriorate over time if it's not protected. So that's probably a good example or a good advocacy reason why we might want to consider grading our cards, but we also want to be confident that when we send our cards to get graded, they're going to get graded appropriately, and we're not going to be charged an extremely inordinate amount of money because you think I'm going to sell that card for a huge profit when you can't just be content with the money you've already agreed to charge for said card because you think that card's going to be that much more valuable. And that would be a good example because the last sale of that card is $2,550. So if I submitted a Steve Yzerman card to PSA and it graded a 10, then that card would get upcharged. However, if I submit that same card to PSA and it grades an 8, then it's a $20 card. So that's why it matters, and that's why people argue that they control population on cards. I mean, this card has 81 10s and almost 1,600 9s. You might even be able to make an argument that they're controlling the population of that card, trying to keep the pop count below 100. So, some things to think about, definitely. And that's going to wrap up point number 2, the 600 goal scorer history, a little overlook on Steve Yzerman, and we will be moving here shortly into point number 3. So point number 3 in our show lineup is the staple of old school cards, and what really got me into hockey was Blue Liner of the Week. So this week we have 2 blue liners. Like I said, one is returning, but it gave me an opportunity to do something I haven't done yet with Blue Liner of the Week, which is evaluate the card from one week to the next. So number 1 on our Blue Liner of the Week, our first Blue Liner, is Shea Theodore of the Vegas Golden Knights. He's a 2013 first-round pick, 26 overall by the Anaheim Ducks. He was taken by the Vegas Golden Knights in the expansion draft, and this week, Mr. Theodore scored 6 points with 1 goal, 5 assists. He was credited with 1 hit and 4 block shots. He's an offensive defenseman, and he had 23 minutes and 36 seconds average time on ice per game. So, looking into his hobby market, and this is where stuff kind of gets crazy because Shea Theodore has been a really good hockey player, especially since the expansion draft where he went to Vegas. 2015-2016 Upper Deck Series 2 card number 495, which you would think maybe would drive his prices up because that's Connor McDavid's rookie season, but it doesn't. PSA 10 average sale is about $50.10 over the last 90 days, and only 2 PSA 10s have been sold over the last 90 days. With the last sale being December 16th of 2024, and it went for $45, so it went for below the average. The gem rate is not great on this card. It's 42.6%, but only 115 Shea Theodore cards have been graded by PSA in 10 years, with 49 of them being PSA 10s and 52 of them being PSA 9s. So low gem rate, low pop count, and low prices. He doesn't have a strong hobby market. However, he's our first blue liner of the week this week. Number 2 is one of the guys I talked about last week. He made the list again. And I'm going to be honest with you. He was tied with 3 other people who all scored 5 points this week. However, I wanted to take a look at his card because I've been intrigued with the way his hobby market is trending. So that's the main reason why I selected him. All other things being equal, he pretty much was equal with the other 2. It wasn't super simple as it was for me last week. But it is, once again, Lane Hudson of the Montreal Canadiens. And we're going to recap real quick. 2022 second round draft pick, 62nd overall by the Montreal Canadiens. So he almost slid to the 3rd round. This week he had 5 points again. So he had 5 points last week, 5 points this week. No goals, 5 assists, 1 hit, 7 blocked shots. His time on ice went down to 20 minutes and 20 seconds per game. But here's where it gets crazy. I really wanted to look at his hobby market from week to week. It's a fairly new card. 24-25 Upper Deck Series 1, card number 229. His PSA 10 is now selling for $427, which is up $13 from last week average. Now we are at 26 of his cards sold over the last 90 days in PSA 10. So that's 4 more. So 4 of his PSA 10s were sold this week. His gem rate went down. This is the only part of Lane Hudson that went down, his gem rate. His gem rate went down because way more cards are getting graded of his. Went down to 31.7%. He now has 568 cards graded with PSA. So in a 7-day period, PSA has graded 121 more Lane Hudson Young Guns, bringing his PSA 10 total to 180. So it went up by 32. So they graded 121 more, and it went up by 32, which is roughly a 25% gem rate. So that's why his gem rate went down. It wasn't good before. It was like 33.1, and now it's 31.7. And 252 of those cards are PSA 9s, so that number increased by 57. The last sale of his card was on January 18th, 2025, for $521. Last sale PSA 10. So even though his average sale price over the last 90 days is at $427, the last sale went for almost $100 more. That is why his price is going up. So the only thing that went down on Lane Hudson was his gem rate, which is only going to drive the prices up even higher on this kid. So that's crazy. We have Shea Theodore as blue liner number 1 this week, which is kind of cool because you will see later in my personal pickups. I don't know why or how this worked out because I purchased this card a couple weeks ago and it came this week. That's why it's going to be on personal pickups. But it is the PSA 9 version of the Shea Theodore Young Guns because I don't collect PSA 10s. So that was kind of cool. Shea Theodore is number 1. Lane Hudson, once again, is on our top pairing, coming in at number 2. So that's 2 weeks in a row. Maybe he will keep playing well and we can put him on the list for a 3rd week and see how his numbers have changed going in that direction. It's kind of fun to be able to see how things move from 1 week to the next. However, I let the players do what they do, and he just happened to be on the list twice because he was tied with the other 2 guys. And let's be honest, it's my show, so I get to pick who the 2 are going to be, and I picked the 2 people with the most points. So he also happened to be one of those guys who scored the second most amount of points. So I got to pick him, and we got to kind of take a little look into what's happening with Lane Hudson from week to week. So more of his cards are being graded, less of his cards are coming back 10s, and the price of his cards are going up. So do you have a Lane Hudson Young Gun card? I'd like to own one. I actually was at Walmart today and I bought the only Series 1 product I could find, and it was a 10. So for the price of the 10, I'm hoping there's a Lane Hudson in there. We're going to be moving here shortly into the next portion of the show, and that is going to be the milestone marker portion. All right, so here we are in the milestone marker, and I thought I would have a little bit of fun, and we're going to talk about Alex Ovechkin. So on January 11th, 2025, Alex Ovechkin scored a goal. We talked about it on last week's show because we're tracking his chase for Gretzky's record. But that goal on 1/11/2025 gave him goal number 20 for the 2024-2025 season, also making him only the second player ever to score 20 goals in a season for 20 straight years. And he joined that list with Mr. Hockey himself, Gordie Howe. Only other player who's done it 20 consecutive years besides Mr. Alex Ovechkin is Mr. Hockey, Gordie Howe, who Ovechkin passed in his pursuit of the goal record most recently, because Gordie Howe is now the number 3 goal scorer all time behind Wayne Gretzky and Alex Ovechkin. Gordie Howe scored 20 goals for 22 straight years, so Ovechkin would have to do it 2 more times to actually tie the record, and the only other person to score 20 goals in 20 years or 20 seasons was Ron Francis, I believe. Ron Francis. Yes, Ron Francis is the only other person to score 20 goals in 20 seasons. However, they were not consecutive. So, Mr. Ovechkin, the grade 8, joins Mr. Hockey with 20 goals for 20 straight years. I was able to do a little more digging on that, and Ovechkin holds the record for 30 goal seasons consecutive, or 30 goal seasons, 8, 40 goal seasons with 13, and he's tied with Wayne Gretzky and Mike Bossy for most 50 goal seasons with 9. So even though we're talking 20 goals over 20 years, he does have some records as opposed for different goal seasons. 30 goals holds the record with 8, 40 goals holds the record for 13, and 50 goal seasons he's tied with Bossy and Gretzky with 9. So that's our milestone marker portion for the week. Quick, simple, and we're going to move right into the next portion of the show, Chasing Greatness. What did Alex Ovechkin do this week? Well, we're about to find out. So in this portion of the video, of the podcast, we get to talk about Alex Ovechkin chasing greatness. He's chasing Wayne Gretzky's goal record. Mr. Ovechkin, the grade 8, did score 1 goal this week. It came on January 16th, 2025, bringing his total goals to 874, and he is now only 20 goals behind, tying Wayne Gretzky's record. He is 21 behind, breaking the record. So he has 21 goals on the season. He's 20 behind. He cut that number in half. If he shut it down now, he could go get another 20-goal season next year. But I think people are hoping that he gets pretty close this year, if not, pass it. So I think he played 3 games this week, scored 1 goal. So he needs to kind of pick up the pace. There's only about 35, 36 games left in the season. So he's going to have to, if he's scoring 1 every 3 games, he's not going to make it this year. He needs to bring that pace to probably about 1 every 2 games if he wants to have a chance at breaking the record this year. But nonetheless, it's getting exciting. People are talking about it. I'm talking about Alex Ovechkin in other portions of this podcast right now because that's what's going on. He's scoring goals. He's getting closer to Gretzky's record, and all along the way, he's breaking other records or setting other records or tying other records. So that's really what's cool about following this. So I hope you guys are following it too. Let me know, is Gretzky gonna, or not Gretzky, is Ovechkin gonna catch Gretzky this year? Email me. Let me know what you think. Maybe we can put out a poll. Do you think he's gonna do it, or is it gonna happen next year? Hopefully. One thing I don't think I talked about last podcast when we started talking about this, but I watched the Greatness episode on ESPN, the special they did on Ovechkin last year. And it was an in-depth look about what he's doing with the goal record and how he's getting closer to Gretzky. And they asked him if he thinks he's going to break the record. And he made this comment about no, because you never know what's going to happen. Anything can happen. And he hasn't broken the record, so he can't say, oh yeah, I'm going to break the record. His mindset is that he's just grinding until he can't grind anymore. So I thought that was an interesting perspective from the man who's doing it himself, where he is fully aware of his, I don't want to say mortality, because it's not like he's dying out there, but he's fully aware that he's getting older, his body's breaking down, and anything could happen which would prevent him from tying the record or breaking the record. And he's not taking it for granted, and that's why he's having so much fun in his pursuit. He doesn't look like he's tight out there. He looks like he's playing, having a good time with the boys, and just doing his thing, playing loose. I know we're 20 goals away, but it doesn't look like the pressure is getting to him about breaking the record. Maybe that will change if he gets within a hat trick of it, because any given night he goes out there, he could break the record, really. Especially if they get some power play time, because that dude is the goal-scoring guy on the power play. He holds the record for most goals all time, power play goals. Which I don't have the notes in front of me, but I do know that for a fact that's true, because I've read it, I saw it somewhere, but I do know that he is the record holder for power play goals in a career. So they get some power play time, that dude could go out there and get a hat trick real quick and tie the record, pass the record, whatever. So maybe then it will be a little more pressure, but it doesn't seem like there is right now. I'm trying to watch as much of his games as I can with my schedule being so busy, but I am really trying to follow as close as I can and see every goal that I can see. And he's playing great, and he's letting it hang and just slinging the biscuit. So we're going to move into the final portion of the show now, and it's my personal pickups. I hope you guys enjoy the cards, and maybe it exposes you to something that you haven't seen before. I try to throw a little mix of everything in there, of some things that came this week. So here we are in the final portion of the show before I give you my closing thoughts, and it's what did I get this week. So the first card, I thought I wanted to do a little bit something different. I don't want to just show the card. I mean, you will be able to see the card because it's right here next to my big old head. I want to tell you what I'm paying for this, and without getting too crazy with breaking stuff down, I'm just going to give you an out-the-door price of what I paid with shipping and taxes and everything for each card. But the first card I got is the 1988 Topps Brett Hull. It's a PSA 8. So I get to check another one of those 600 goal scorers off the list. I think I'm up to 5 because I did buy another one this week. It's not here yet. But yeah, Brett Hull, PSA 8, out the door. And I'm going to tell you where I got it from. This was an auction that I, out the door, paid $22.65. And this is one of the top 10 guys, goal scorers in the history of the NHL. I got a collector's grade of his rookie card for $22.65. Where did I find that deal? On eBay. It ran at auction, and that's the out the door price. I won the card for 16 something. I had to pay for shipping. I had to pay for taxes. And I ended up paying $22.65 to have that card sent to its forever home, which will be with me in my collection forever. And I know it's right there, but I also believe that I have it right here. Yes, I do. So that's what I'm saying. It is now, it's right here with me in its forever home. And I can do that with the next couple cards. Ooh, that was loud. Sorry. The next card I picked up was one of the blue liners of the week, and that's why I said it was kind of funny that it happened that way, because I also bought this card a week or two ago, and then it just happened to arrive this week. And then Mr. Shea Theodore ends up on the blue liner of the week, which is kind of cool because the card came in a couple days ago, and then when I pull the stats for the week on Saturday night, bam, he's at the top of the list. So it's 2015-2016 Upper Deck Series 2. Shea Theodore PSA 9, because I collect PSA 9s. And if you look at modern cards, there's really not much of a difference between PSA 9s and PSA 10s. I'm sorry, guys, I'm looking at it. What did I pay for this guy? $26.87 out the door right here. Bang. On eBay. That's not a, there we go. On eBay. That's where that card came from. So those two, this card did not come from eBay, but it was a really cool card, and I get myself into trouble a lot when I go on this platform because I jump in the singles rooms and I just watch what people are running, and if something tickles my fancy, I purchase the card. And I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's 2013-2014 Panini Prism. So it was the last year that Panini had the NHL license. And shame on you, Hockey Cards Gong Show, because you guys exposed me to these cards, and I think they're gorgeous, and I keep buying them. Like, I don't even PC Jamie Benn, but I saw this card, and I said, oh, that needs to come to me. So 2013-2014 Panini Prism. It's a Prism green, so it's a color match. Jamie Benn and a PSA 9. PSA 9. And I purchased this card on Whatnot from a single show. And I got it out the door to me, $9. It's less than what it costs to slab it. So that's the card. Trying not to get too much glare. I already put it in a PSA sleeve. The color really doesn't pop there. Hopefully you can see it better in the picture, but in person, oh my goodness, that thing is gorgeous. And I got it for $9. I got a PSA 9 13-14 Prism for $9, and it's a color match card. So that was pretty cool. I don't have the other cards in front of me, but actually I might have one. The base set. I do not. Okay. The base set. So this next card is also a 2013-2014 base Prism. So it's not a refractor. It's not anything special. It's just the base. It's a Alex Ovechkin 2013-2014 Prism. It is raw. Why is it raw? Because I bought 15 of them, all in the range of $3 to $6. So I bought 15 of these. I bought a whole bunch of them off of ComC. I think I bought 6 of them off of ComC. I cleaned out ComC. I took every single one because they were like $3.50 each. And the rest of them I bought on eBay. I don't know why I bought 15 of them. Maybe I was thinking I was going to grade them. I don't know. Maybe they will have value. I don't know. I don't know why I bought so many, but the price was like nothing. So I just kept buying them and buying them and buying them. And I mean, they're $3 each. It's Alex Ovechkin, and he's about to break the goal record. So that's why I bought that card. I mean, I know why I bought the card, but I don't know why I bought 15 of them, 14 of them. And this next card, really cool. So I have a save search on eBay, and it's just called Gretzky Insert. That's it. So anytime somebody puts a eBay listing up, so I'm telling you where I got this card right away. But that's okay, because I'm going to tell you anyway. But anytime anything goes up where Wayne Gretzky's name is in there, and the word insert is in there, I get the notifications in my email like, hey, 200 new Gretzky inserts, and I can go in and look. But 1998, 1999, Topps Finest. How cool is that? Topps Finest. Red Lighters. Wayne Gretzky. I mean, the card is beautiful. It still has the film on it. It's raw, but the card is gorgeous. It's such a cool card too. Like super cool card in person. I just got it out the door. Here we go. $21.65 on eBay. With shipping, with taxes. And I got a cool 1998-99 Topps Finest Wayne Gretzky insert. I'm really into like random weird Wayne Gretzky inserts, but they are cool and I really do like them, and I'm sure you're going to see more of them. And if you can think of some that I probably don't know about, email me your favorite Gretzky insert, because the next card on the list is also another Wayne Gretzky insert. I went on a bit of a Gretzky insert buying spree this week. These are two of the ones I'm going to show you, and then I'll show you a couple more next week. But it's a 95-96 Topps Stadium Club, and it's a Gretzky Lemieux Nemesis insert. So if you look at the card right there, the main card is Wayne Gretzky, and the little box in the corner is Mario Lemieux. And then when you flip the card on the back, it's a picture of Mario Lemieux with Wayne Gretzky in the corner. So it was really cool. It's gold. It's not numbered or anything like that, but it's from 1995, 1996. It's a cool card. It's got Gretzky on it. It's got Lemieux on it, and it talks about how they're battling it out, right? They're nemesis because one plays for the Penguins, one plays for the Kings, and they're the two best players in the NHL. I don't know. It's such a cool card. It's got both of them on it. And out the door, I paid $13.74. So you can get some of these cards for really reasonable prices. Only suggestion I have on some of these is make sure that you're really taking a fine-tooth comb over the pictures and the edges and the surface, because you're talking about some stuff that's 20 years old. You don't want to get took on an insert that's all banged up when it should be cheaper or something like that. So $13.74 for this card. And now that's it, guys. We're wrapping the show up. I want you guys to know how much fun I'm having making this. I'm learning every week and trying to make it better. If you have any suggestions for me, please email me. My email is below. So I want to know what you guys are thinking. Are you enjoying this as much as I'm enjoying making it? I get to show off my cards. I get to talk about cards. I get to talk about hockey. It's so much fun, guys. So much fun. I want to give a shout out to these guys here. Chasing Cardboard, Ty over at Chasing Cardboard. I've been a member of his community for a long time. He makes great YouTube videos. If you haven't seen them, look at the YouTube videos, Chasing Cardboard. It's not really hockey content. It's just sports card content, but it's basically like a TV show on YouTube that you can watch, and it's all about buying sports cards. And he does vintage, and he does modern, and he does all sports. He does a little bit of everything. He gets to travel. It's really kind of a cool show. If you haven't seen it, I suggest watching it. I want to shout out my guys at Hockey Cards Gong Show Podcast. Been interacting a lot in their Discord. Totally worth it for the $5 a month Patreon subscription that they offer. Listen to their podcast. Watch their podcasts on YouTube. I'm that guy. I will listen to it in the car while I'm driving to and from school because I'm a teacher and a coach. So I listen when I go. Each one is 3 hours long. And then I'm also the guy that comes home and watches what I just listened so I can see the stuff that they're talking about. So their content gets consumed twice by me at a minimum. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who does that. So shout out to those guys. And I love you guys. I hope you're having a great New Year so far. I hope everything is going well in your hobby life. I hope you're getting exposed to new stuff that you're falling in love with. And until next time, guys, keep collecting what you love. I'll see you next week.